Prices for many 911s decreased significantly during last year, especially when it comes to the most recent generations. But unfortunately for buyers, this trend is changing. Prices stabilized during the last 6 months. This isn't a surprise for the older models, but it is for the 992. Depreciation curves in that market flattened, and that's good news for owners. Now if you clicked on this video because you like data and 911s, you definitely need to keep on watching. If you don't like either one of them, then this might not be the right video for you. We'll first have a quick look at the current market data and then dive into the different price trends. Over here we have the US market in August. There are 955 clean titles listed for sale, and this is 5% less than 3 months ago, and a shocking 35% less than 1 year ago. Supply is decreasing, and we're seeing this across the board. Used car supply tightened. Now looking at the prices, we can see that you can already get a 911 at $20,000. Those are high mileage 996s, and unless you're good with a set of tools, it's probably better to spend a bit more for a fresher example. If you prefer a more modern car, things get quickly more expensive. A 997.1 will set you back $46,000 and a .2 $71,000. And this latter number is awfully close to the 991 generation. But I guess there's a good reason for it. The 997.2 is often named as one of the best modern 911s. Now looking at that 991 generation, we can see that there's a significant price gap of $22,000 between the .1s and the .2s. I previously asked you if this is worth it, and I got mixed replies. So if you're in the market for a 911, be sure to check out the .1 and the .2. It could save you a pretty penny. Now at $134,000, the 992 is the big daddy for now. But it won't be for much longer. The 992.2 is underway. Yet, that isn't reflected in the latest price developments. If you saw my previous market updates, you know that 992 prices decreased by approximately 10% between May of this year and May of last year. More recently though, the 992 market, but also the 911 market in general showed great market strength. So let's discuss the latest developments in the price trend and compare them to the market trend. Over here we have the price trends in the 992 Carrera 2 market, split by model type. And look at that, prices didn't change in the last 3 months, and this is a clear deviation from the previous trend. Base models are up by 1%, GTSs by 0.5% and Ss by 0.4%. These changes are so small that we cannot conclude that prices are going up. It could just be the result of chance. It does, however, mean that the year-over-year price drop is low for such a new car. Base models are down by 6.6% or $9,000, S models by 10.5% or $16,400, and GTSs by 6.7% or $13,700. Supply might have played a key role here. It's down by 36% compared to February of this year. If I also add the four-wheel driven variants to the graph, you can see that the price patterns are the same. They just fluctuate a bit more because the market size is smaller. Therefore, you can also see that the confidence intervals are wider. We're not going to discuss the trends for the four-wheel driven cars, so I suggest that you pause the video if you want to have a closer look. So we saw now that prices didn't change during the last 3 months, and that this trend change already started 6 months ago. That's quite an extraordinary development by itself. But wait, there's more. The flattening of the curves occurred for almost all model years, and that's quite unique. Over here you can see the price trends per model year for the Carrera 2 base and S models. I know that there are many lines here, but let's focus on the most recent development. With exception of the 2021 base models, all price trends flattened, even more so than in the aggregate trends, and this shows that price trends changed. Prices of course increased during the pandemic, topped in the summer of 22 and then decreased. Now, however, decrease rates flattened and in some cases even disappeared. Now over this period, the median mileage of the cars that are listed for sale of course increased, and this further highlights the specialness of this price stabilization. For example, in November 22 the median mileage for a 2022 base model was 12,000 miles. In today's market it's almost 17,000 miles, and you can see that this addition of 5,000 miles didn't really push prices down. In fact, if you would break this graph down by mileages instead of model year, you would see a similar development. Prices were stable. Now it's important to interpret these price trends with some common sense. What do I mean by this? Well, it's unlikely that this bottoming formation is a permanent bottom. The market trend is still down, and with winter approaching, I wouldn't be surprised to see a continuation of the downward trend. Yet, I think it's unlikely that we'll see depreciation rates similar to last year. In general, cars lost more than average during that period. Now this narrative of stabilizing prices applies to most of the 911 market, but for some market segments it's more surprising than for others. Let's have a look at some other generations. Over here we have the price trend for the 991.2 Carrera 2s, and we can see a similar pattern as in the 992 market. Prices increased during the pandemic, topped mid-2022, started to decrease and stabilized after February. The most recent price development broke the downward trend, for now at least. Compared to February, prices for the base model decreased by 1.1%. GTSs didn't change, S's are down by 1.3%, and T's are up by 3.1%. But this last number needs to be interpreted with care. The market is very small and the confidence interval increased during the most recent period. Now looking at the price change during last year, we can see that base and GTS models lost approximately 9% and S's 11.6%. All in all, not a bad result. Again, in line with the 992 market, supply has been plummeting. 991.2s are getting increasingly rare. A quick look on the supply graph reveals that the trend is clearly down. In fact, supply is at the same or below the pandemic level. Especially T's and GTSs are a rare sight. Now on a standalone basis, supply by itself isn't a good predictor of prices. We talked about this many times on the channel. Ideally, we should take a look at the scarcity level in the market, but that I save for the next Carrera market update in November. Let's move on to the 991.1 market, and that also means that we're moving more and more towards a group of cars that are almost, or are, at the bottom of their depreciation curve. I'm talking about the 991.1s, the 997s and the 996s. It's a different world when it comes to depreciation. In my previous market update we saw that there are major differences between the generations. Prices for older cars have been relatively stable, meaning that they didn't decrease or not as much when the rest of the market tanked mid-2022. Looking at the 991.1 Carrera 2 market, we can see that compared to February, base prices are up by 1.6%. GTSs are down by 2.9% and S's by 0.6%. And this means that the year-over-year decreases are 3.9% for the base model, 7% for the GTSs and minus 6.5% for the S's. Naturally, this is lower than what we saw in the .2 market, and of course also lower than what we saw in the 992 market. Overall though, we can see that base and S prices have been very stable. The maximum price for an S model was $85,000 and currently is $79,400. For the base model this is $77,000 and $72,000. Now before we move on to the 997 market, it's important to discuss the GTSs. You see, it seems that the GTS market is losing value at a relatively rapid pace. Yet, this market is extremely small, so the price uncertainty is larger. Therefore, we need to interpret the exact changes with care. Continuing with the 997.2 Carrera 2 market, I need to insert a similar disclaimer. Some 997 market segments are very small. There are for example less than 25 997.2s for sale, so the price uncertainty is large and the price trends fluctuate quite a bit. Therefore, it's more informative to look at the long-term trend than at the exact price changes. So what do we have here? Well, we can see relatively stable price trends if we take the data limitations into account. Compared to last year, .1 base prices are down by 4.5% and .1 S's by 15.2%. The decrease in the S market seems excessively large and is then also a bit deceiving. It's mainly the result of a change in market composition. Looking at the cars between 68 and 146,000 miles, so the majority of the market, we can see that prices actually decreased by only 7%. Looking at the .2s, we can see that base models are down by 10.6% and S's by 1.7%. The S market is significantly larger and therefore has a more reliable trend. Therefore, I wouldn't read too much into the 10% drop. The same applies to the GTSs. So all in all, those are relatively stable price trends, similar to what we saw in the 991.1 market. But we cannot always interpret them correctly at this aggregate level. So please keep that in the back of your mind when you look at that graph. And with that, it's time to move on to the last generation, the 996s. Over here we have the price trends for the .1 and .2 base models and the .2 S's. The last group of course only contains the four-wheel driven variant, but that split is not included here, because it makes the other trends more difficult to interpret. Starting off with the base models, we can see that the short-term trends are flat. Prices hardly changed during the last 6 months. Compared to last year, .1s are down by 1.7% and .2s by 9.6%. And this last number is, again, a slight overestimation due to the changes in the market composition. Overall prices have been very stable. Moreover, in monetary terms, owners hardly lost anything. A .1 base model would set you back $30,000 1 year ago, while it's $29,500 today. Now people frequently ask me, what's an affordable car that keeps its value reasonably well? The answer is right here. It's the 996.1 base model. Nobody can look into the future, and past price behavior is no guarantee for future price behavior. But look at that price trend. Prices have been at the same level for 2 years. The same applies to other Porsches from similar model years. Think about the 996 Boxster for example. Looking at the 4S's, we can see that the price trend is volatile due to the small market size. Yet, in the grand scheme of things, prices are stable. The upper and lower value of the confidence interval fluctuate roughly between $38,000 and $53,000, while the median prices hover around $45,000. Alright, we flicked now through quite many graphs, and we saw that year-over-year price changes sit somewhere between 1 and 11%. Older generations tend to fall on the left-hand side of that scale and the newer ones on the right-hand side. Overall though, this is an excellent performance. In my exotic car market update that I posted a few weeks ago, we saw that most sports and supercars lost 10.4%. And this means that in almost all cases, the 911 Carrera did better than the market average. Now when it comes to the trend direction, we saw that depreciation rates decreased. In many cases, prices were stable during the last 6 months. And this is in line with the general market trend. In the exotic car market update video we saw that depreciation rates were relatively high during last year, but that they softened more recently. And with that we arrived at the end of this video. Now if you enjoyed this data-driven way of analyzing car prices, but would like to see an analysis for a different car, head over to my channel. Over there you'll find market analysis for a large variety of cars. Can't find the car you're looking for? Let me know the name of the car by commenting it down below in the comment section. Once there are enough requests for a certain car, I'll make a video about it. As always, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next week for a new video.